and welcome to Cahnmann's Current Events Roundtable. Today we have a very, very special program, and it's something that I think that everyone needs to hear. It's extremely important, and I have two amazing guests on the show today. And one is Terry Steinberg, who is the Chicago Regional Organizer of the Illinois Association of Microboards and Cooperatives, and she's also a parent of a teenager with special needs. Welcome, Terry, to our show.
Thank you.
And to my left here is Eva Kulik, who is a parent of a young adult with special needs. And welcome to the show, Eva. I'm so glad to have you both at the show. Thank you for coming. I want to read something to my viewers, and I think this is important. The governor of Illinois, Pat Quinn, has already closed one institution and is possibly going to close two more for developmental disabilities because Illinois is in severe debt. The question is, ladies, what is going to happen to all these people that are in these institutions that need help? Terry, would you like to start and tell us a little bit about what's going to happen if you...
I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
First of all, when the governor closed HOW, they went into the community and transitioned, some well, some not so well. And currently, the plan is for rebalancing that we are going to close Jacksonville Developmental Center and Murray Developmental Center. So the plan would be to have people who are now in these institutions transition into the community with support and services and programs in the community of their choice.
So now that sounds all well and good, but how is this going to happen? I mean, how many people, thousands of people are in these institutions?
Hundreds. Oh, thousands of people are in, but hundreds of people, if it is their choice to move and transition to the community, will get the opportunity now.
So who's going to help them transition? How is this supposed to happen? These institutions are closing, and all these people are going to, where do I go now? I mean, these people have not been out there, and they don't have the skills. So people like you are going to be coming, people like you are going to come into the community and help. I think you're doing some work with the governor right now.
Well, hopefully before the transition is even made, we're going to be able to do person-centered planning around each person and see what their choices are, what their abilities are, and then hopefully transition them into the community and build supports in the community of their choice so that they can live around family and loved ones and have services and get to know people in the community, like here in Highland Park. It would be at the Jewel, at the library, at the rec center, because if you transition someone out of an institution to live independently and then they're alone,
now what's going to happen?
The building of that support, that circle of support.
We're going to talk about what is person-centered planning and what is developmental disabilities. I think this is what our viewers need to know. But let me get to Eva right now, and then we'll go back to you, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Eva, you're a parent of a 21-year-old daughter, and I understand when a child that has developmental disabilities is 22, she will be, they say, aging out of the system. Can you talk a little bit about that? What do you mean by aging out of the system, and what happens to your daughter? And then we'll get back to developmental disabilities. I know your daughter she's on the spectrum of autism.
That's correct.
And she has what? She has what kind of a disorder?
Well, hers is called tuberous sclerosis. It's a very unusual disorder, but she's on the spectrum of autism is basically what it boils down to. And she now has gone through a process where she is being looked at, and we are trying to see what we could do when she does age out at 22. Because this is a problem for a lot of parents. She will not be going on to college, to higher education. She would not fit in that type of surrounding. She is right now, we're looking to see if we can get some home base funding for her, which would be where they would have a one-on-one with her that would go out into the community and do things with her like that. She's right now in a program through our school district, which in this area is NSSED, which is the North Shore Special Education District. And she opted not to take her degree, her four-year degree, her diploma at high school, regular high school. And so therefore, she's been here, and we are now making the decisions now before her 22nd birthday, which will be next January.
So you have a lot on your shoulders to think about what's going to happen at 22. I know I was at a meeting just a couple of weeks ago, and I know that DePaul University is a program that's starting out. It's new, it hasn't begun yet, and I know they're going to be doing a program for children with disabilities, so they can, it's a college program, so children with developmental disabilities could go, and other disabilities can go to the colleges, to their particular college. It's a new, completely new program for this, and as when we get a little bit more involved in our situation with children with developmental disabilities, I will have most likely DePaul on our show to explain what they're going to be doing. I think that's really important, and I'm going to invite both of you back for that particular show so we can see what's in store, you know, possibly for your children. And we've been talking about developmental disabilities, and I think our viewers need to know a little bit about what is a developmental disability.
Well, I work for a grant from the Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities. So that would cover people that are on the autism spectrum, people that have Down syndrome, people with cerebral palsy. These are all considered developmental. Mm-hmm.
And in autism, there's all different stages of autism. There's people that are highly function, they can function very well, but then they have, I know your daughter functions extremely well when it comes to, I've talked to her before in history. She's well versed in history. She seems to have, she's teaching me. And I've asked her some questions, but even when it comes to, I ask her what time it is, she doesn't know she can't read time. So developmental disabilities, they go from a very high range to a very low range.
We call it more profound or severe needs as opposed to higher or lower. But the point is that if you were to have heart issues, they might say, well, you have a murmur, and you could live your whole life and never even notice a difference. Or along the spectrum on the other end of that, more profound or severe would be you have triple bypass and nitroglycerin. Mm-hmm. So autism is also a spectrum like that. There are those that are slightly affected, and then along the spectrum with all very, very different needs.
And someday I hope they find the cure for it. There are so many different things that they're doing, you know, for autism, but nothing has really happened yet. And so
there's no cure.
So what you're doing with the governor and what you're going to be doing with families, and I think that Eva, you're going to be involved in a planning alternative tomorrow with hope, and it's called PATH, P-A-T-H. Right. Maybe you could explain it to me, and because I think Eva's going to be involved in this program soon. Okay. You told me about it, and so this is something that I wasn't even aware that this was, part of.
This is one of the many person-centered planning tools that we can use. And a path is where you look at, if you were living that dream life, and there was no, oh, she could never do that, or he could never, we could never afford, but literally to dream it. What would that look like? What life? Where would you be living? Where would you be working if you could do anything? Who would be there on the couch with you hanging out? So think of if you were a senior, as I know many of your audiences, and they want to be able to live independently as long as possible. What kind of supports? What does that life look like? Mm-hmm. And then we go to what's positive and possible. What could we actually be doing? And then we work at what does life look like now? who do we have to kind of enroll in that process to be able to move from the now to that dream life that we'd love to be living, to be supported, whatever that looks like for each of us. And then we go through backwards, planning. If we want to be here in 1 year, where do we have to be in 6 months? Where do we have to be in 3 months? What do we have to do when we leave this room today? So that's person-centered planning, that it doesn't look like everybody else's, that your path would look very different from Eva's path, which would look very different from mine.
But in Eva's case, the reason you're going to be doing this, I think you mentioned a little bit earlier to me that if something happened to you, you're the mother of a child with a child that is on the autism spectrum, and you're the sole you're a single mom, right? And you have 2 other children, one younger, and your daughter is 21. Your other daughter is how old?
I have 2 younger from my oldest.
Yeah, how old is your youngest?
I have a 15-year-old and almost an 18-year-old.
An 18-year-old. Okay. This is why we're on the show today, and I think Terry is going to be doing with the family, because if something ever happened to you, do you want to talk a little bit about why you're going to have this and why it's so important to have this for your child?
If something happens to me, everybody who is her support unit needs to know or say everything about her. It has to be all documented, and it's important that the different agencies will know as well.
So if something happens to you, your family is going to be like a group?
But it's not just her family. I don't want to cut you off, but it's
family
her
and friends.
family, it's her friends,
Yes.
It's people that know and love you, who are there to form a circle of support.
So it's like a
around
circle
you,
of friends
so that
and
if
family.
you could take one person out, there would still be this support system of people that are in the community that know you, love you, care about you, know your routines, know your likes, your dislikes, know what the hopes for your future are, and can be there to help you become more of a self-advocate.
Okay, so if something happened to her, and here she has a child who now is 21, but then 22, she goes out, she's not going to be provided for as much, and who's going to take care of her? So the child, what will this do? What will the support team do to help the child along? That's what I'm trying to get to.
You just said it. That's just it. They become a team. We have something called a microboard, a small board of directors, a small circle of support that forms around that focus person to be able to be that team. In the olden days, we had the neighbors who all looked out for each other.
Right.
So they were your system. And now that everybody's moved away, we don't really have a team of people that move in. So it's not just what's going to happen when, God forbid, a parent dies, but it is how are we going to get them to really be able to live their best life and be able to take all of those capacities, all of those abilities, and show them and stand up and be part of the community and live a fuller life so that we can all be part of the community and not just walking through.
I want to say, Suzanne, that certain things have to be in place when your children are about 18. And that's where some of the legal legalities come in, and certain things that you have to have in place. God forbid something happens to me, or just, in general. And when you're in a school, the teachers and the administrative will sit down with you, and they'll talk to you about the certain things that have to be in place. And there's certain things that have to be in place pretty much by the time they're 18. And that is, you should get legal guardianship for your child. And this is a process that you have to go into the...
attorney?
You have to go to the court downtown, and then you have to sign some papers, get some papers done. Some people go through a lawyer, some people don't.
Okay.
And then you have to go before the judge. You have to have documentation of your child's disability. It has to be done by a doctor and things in place like that. And then you can get legal guardianship. And what this means basically is, you can't go to a doctor or have your child seen in a hospital without you signing for them and everything. And you have to be the person who's in charge of all their medical. They won't give you anything if you don't have this legal, you know, guardianship
medical,
in place.
financial.
Nothing.
Now, if something happened to you, the thing that would be in place perhaps would
I have
be
a will.
this-
I have a
you
will. I went to a
special needs
special
trust, I
a
hope.
needs trust, yes, through
Special
a
needs
lawyer
trust.
that we also went through, and that was set up also, so that they can't take your child's Medicare away, and you have to set that up too. Your child needs to get on Medicare. You know, insurances have to be in place.
SSI.
Right, SSI.
And
is
huge
what we talk
degree
about.
of paperwork.
And,
That's
and
correct.
SSI would be your social...
It's supplemental
Social
Social Security income which your child receives. And then my daughter, because she's more lower functioning disabled, she gets she's on disability.
She's
So
high,
gets-
she is high functioning, and then she has
Correct.
low functioning. It's not that she's low
Right.
functioning. There's parts of her that are very high functioning.
Right,
Because
correct.
I've talked to her.
Right.
And believe me, she's high functioning. It makes me feel like when I talk to her.
She is
that I
more
have to talk-
social. Hers
yeah.
is more social issues.
Yes.
And then that's probably what impedes her
So,
more.
and this sounds well and good. Now, what's going to happen to a lot of these people? Now, we're talking about the governor leaving, you know, and we'll get back to some of the employments and everything of other things that need to be arranged. But we're thinking about. I'm thinking about all those 2,000 people also who are waiting for support and services in Illinois. And
Well, let me
how
just
it-
correct you.
yes.
There's 32,000
Oh,
people
32,000.
on the waiting list.
I'm sorry,
for
you are
services.
correct. I didn't see. I
32,000.
try to work on the show without my glasses, but when I put on my glasses, you are right. It is.
If it was 2,000 people, that would be
yes.
something we can control. But the
Yeah.
fact that there's 32,000
1,000
people
people.
who are waiting in the wings for some kind of support or services is abominable. Abominable. It's just, it is unreal. So, you know, again, this is another issue. The PUNs,
Right.
prioritization of urgency of needs. This is a different, these 32,000 people waiting for services are very different from the people that are now institutionalized who by choice may choose to come out and live in the community. This is a different group of people. So we have all kinds of serious issues that the people in the disability community are facing right now. And the fact that there are 32,000 people and that the state is broke and that services and supports are always on the table for our most vulnerable citizens is of, you know,
Well,
extreme concern to
Who
many
is
of us.
lobbying for these people? Who is their advocate out there?
Well, there are many different advocates, but if you think about everything that we did in civil rights, the people in the disability community just want to go where everybody else has already been. You know, they don't want to be necessarily segregated out into some place where they have, we want to have self-advocates and their families and loved ones be able to help them live supported, but in the community. So the point is that all of us, all of the people that are listening to your show, that's who has to become an advocate, because this is a group that the parents are already stressed and have, as she said, SSI to worry about. Job employment is a huge, you know, they have guardianship to worry, they have all these issues. So to then also handle advocacy and building that life, they need normal, everyday citizens to come and say, gee, what do I want when I'm an elder? I want to be able to live independently as long as I can in the community of my choice with whatever supports I need. Again, same thing that the people in the disability community want. So seniors, disabled, it's, you know,
Right.
we have the ARC, we have
Yeah, and Eva, you're being that your daughter, she's the person that she's talking about. One of the type of children that she's talking about. What are your frustrations? I mean, as far as jobs, what's there for her in jobs? How does she handle jobs? What are some of the things that you're concerned about?
She's right now in a program where they give her a job coach, and she has been working jobs with the job coach, and these are like internships, they call them. My concerns
internships without pay.
Correct.
Yeah, so we talk about internships.
That's correct.
Because I know my own daughter went on an internship and she stayed for a couple of years, and I asked, well, what are they paying you? And they said,
don't pay.
It's an honor to be
an intern.
Yes.
And let's just say that's also only until her 22nd birthday.
That's correct.
And then, as in your title of the show, when the school bus stops coming,
that's right.
That's just it. All these people who have any kind of entitlement now.
May not have it at
will
22.
have, no, not may not.
Will not have
nothing.
it after their
22nd birthday.
So it's 20, that's a magic number. I wonder who got to the number 22.
It was 21 up until a while ago.
Yeah, so 22, your daughter's 21, she's involved and she's getting all these programs that you're talking about. Now what happens to her and all the hundreds and thousands of children out there that turn 22? What's in store for them?
Well, in her case, like I said, we're working right now with Community Alternative Services, which happens to be
your PASS agent, your pre-admission screening agent, Community Alternatives Unlimited, CAU.
And so they're trying to see whether they're going to have placement for her at 22, which would mean what we're trying to do for her is get home-based home-based funding waiver, right?
And what do you feel that is there a chance? I talked a little bit earlier in the show about DePaul University, which I want to, and hopefully is there maybe, if they have a transportation system, they have something that she may be able to fit in, so they can give her, or it doesn't have to be DePaul, but if DePaul is one of the people that are doing it, one of the universities that are doing it, there may be other universities.
There is, and there's also programs. There's also programs. I'm sorry, that are through our junior colleges that they have as well for certain students.
So the College of Lake County.
Yes,
or
yes, Lake County. Yes, they do. They do have for certain students that would fall under that.
What do they fall under? To get into like a...
Well, wouldn't you say they would be higher function, they would be people that can get along with, I know people that are trying to be like an assistant aide, in a classroom and things like that. So they have a path as to what they want to do, too.
And the law changes when you go to any kind of a university. You have to be able to self-advocate and say or declare or not declare your disability. You have to be able to state your disability should you choose to, and to ask for accommodations. And if you don't...
And you have to take the ACT and SAT to get in. Yeah. And you have to have a certain grade point average, too.
Which counts. Yeah. Many of our people leave them back in a program.
It sounds to me like this university I was talking about, maybe they don't have to, they have a different method than ACT, SAT, because that's very difficult. I had a daughter who was an AA plus student and had difficulty with the SATs and ACTs. She had difficulty doing the type of tests that are given with ACTs. And she was a wonderful student in the classroom, but had difficulty with that type of a test. So if she had difficulty with that test, who was an A student in school without disabilities, how is some child with a learning disability or developmental disability of some kind, how are they going to pass the ACTs, SATs?
If you just have attention deficit disorder, they do allow some accommodations in taking the ACT. And so you would get more time and things like that. They allot you more time. For certain things, they can do that. And then, you have to know what's on the test in order to take the test.
Yes.
So if you weren't taking certain level classes to begin with, you're not going to know what.
But I'm
how to
thinking
even
that
take
maybe the
ACT.
university has a different system for these children.
And there are a whole lot of people that are never going to be involved in the university experience who are still going to be sitting at home on their couch with nowhere to go, no services, no programs, and nothing to do. And so what we want to encourage is somebody to say, okay, then let's see who you know and maybe carve out a customized employment situation that you can, we had a gal who, we said, what does she love to do? And they said, open boxes at the holidays, you know. So now she's got a job.
Or wrap-up boxes at the holidays.
Exactly.
Yes.
Something that
That's
you
more
can
fun.
do that is
Yes.
strictly something that is carved out, that's maybe not what you think of as a 9-to-5 job or as a typical job, but to still think, what could we do to bring people with disabilities out of their home, off their couch, and give them some kind of competitive pay employment? Because you and I both know that not only do you need some place to go, because a lot of us identify with who we are is our self-worth is that we have a job, but also that all the people in our disability community have an awful lot to give.
Right,
And nobody
exactly.
ever asks of them. It's always, you know, what can we do for them? But that they have so many gifts and abilities.
Right, and everybody's good at something. Everyone's good at something. My daughter's very meticulous.
Your daughter,
so
you
they give
told
her
me,
very
There's a
did something
job
with
for that.
you said earlier.
She's
your daughter
very
with the flower-
creative.
with
She's
the
very
flower
creative,
shop. Did
and
she work in a flower shop?
That's
You
right.
told
She's
me.
very
What did she do in a flower
She's
shop?
very creative, and they gave her different jobs to do in the floral shop,
for
which she
instance?
loved. It's putting together an arrangement, and they'll show her how to do it and how to clip the bottoms of the rose and do that, and she loved it.
And she was able to do it.
Yeah.
Once she was shown what to
Correct.
do, she
And
was
maybe
able
better
to
than
do it.
someone else because
Right, 'cause of that.
she zones in on exactly how it's done.
And she was
so-
reliable. She came at her job all the time, you were telling me.
liked
She loved her, she liked her job, she was there, she was all the time. So children with developmental disabilities they're wonderful. They're great workers. They pay attention. You need to show them and maybe work a little bit with them, but once you teach them, they do fine.
Just like everybody else. You know,
Even better, and I say, it sounds like even better
you're
than
like,
other people.
At some things, people excel, depending on whether they have disability or not. The point is to stop making that assumption that because they have a disability that they can only, and stop the sentence right there. And to say, we are all people, and we can all do some things better and other things not so well, that we are just like everybody else.
Right.
In that we have strengths and we have weaknesses.
And I'm glad, Terry, that you are working with the governor of Illinois, Governor Quinn, hopefully that you can talk him into it, you know, treat him for a nice lunch and then you know, get,
Well,
you know,
we've shaken hands a few times.
Lots of sweets, you know, so he's calm and collected and, you know, really, because this is so important. The work that you're doing is extremely important because, you know, there are not too many people that are doing your type of work. And
There are
in
four
fact,
of us in the state of Illinois. And being
four
that I'm also
people
a
in the
parent
state.
of a child with a disability,
Yes.
I have a lot of drive to be able to say everybody needs some kind of person-centered planning so that they can be their best selves.
Yeah,
and be out
because
there and
there's going to be a
shine.
lot of people out there, if they're closing these institutions and they're closing so many services and they're closing so many different kinds of agencies for even mental health, you know, developmental, all kinds of things for people that really need services because, as you say, the state is broke. We're glad that you're, you know, and you, Eva, I'm glad as a parent that you were able to come on the show because, you know, that was good because I think people have to know that you being a mother that, you know, the situation really exists and here you are, the perfect example. I want to thank you so much for being on the show. Eva Kulik and Terry Steinberg. I mean, these are wonderful ladies that are really working in this field. You as a mother that's trying to do as much as possible, and an advocate for other mothers that need help right now too. Both of you are doing a wonderful, wonderful service, and this is